introduce you to the inquiry, please. You are George Yerrall, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. And you're a director of RiverOak Strategic Partners Limited, is that also correct?
I am a director of RiverOak Strategic Partners Limited, yes.
And you have a BA in economics from Amherst, and you have an MBA from the Columbia University Graduate School of Business, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And if I could ask you, please, just to turn to your main proof of evidence, which is tab 1 in the inspector's bundle. And I'd like you, please, just to read out, if you would be so kind, please, paragraphs 1.2 and 1.3 of that main proof.
I have 35 years of experience as an investor. During my career, I've been responsible for sourcing, underwriting, and closing equity investments. All have involved the formation of special purpose entities for the purpose of adding value to assets. I have been involved in well over 50 transactions with total capitalization exceeding $3 billion.
Thank you. And do you confirm to the inquiry that the evidence you have prepared and provide for this appeal is true, and that the opinions that you have expressed in your evidence are indeed your true opinions?
I do. And they are my opinions.
Thank you. Well, can I then ask you, please, Mr. Yerrall, to take out your summary proof of evidence, which you'll find in tab 5 of your documents. And if I can ask you, please, to first of all go to your section 2, where you tell the inquiry and the inspector a little bit more about RiverOak Strategic Partners Limited. Can I ask you to read 2.1 down to 2.4, please?
RiverOak Strategic Partners Limited is an independent special purpose UK entity that will make the application for the Development Consent Order, the DCO, to gain the necessary consents to return Manston to airport use. In addition to me, the directors of RiverOak are Niall Lawler, Tony Freudman, Nick Rothwell, Rico Seitz, and Gerhard Häusler. Myself, Mr. Lawler, and Mr. Freudman are responsible for the daily operations of RiverOak. Mr. Lawler has over 20 years of experience in fixed income securities, capital markets, and private equity, both on Wall Street and in boutique investment banks. He was integrally involved in the refinancing of Alliance Airport in Fort Worth, Texas, which is a large-scale aviation cargo and service hub that has no passenger business. Mr. Freudman has over 30 years of experience in the aviation and travel industry. In his former role as managing director of Manston Airport Limited, a wholly owned subsidiary of Plain Station Group plc, he was responsible for overseeing the airport's conversion from an RAF base to a civilian operation after its acquisition in 1999 from the Ministry of Defense. Mr. Freudman was also responsible for the development of Manston's successful inbound perishable goods business from East Africa. He left the company in 2004 when a new group chief executive rescinded the previous emphasis on cargo and resolved to acquire a passenger airline, which was to be based at Manston. It was the losses sustained by that airline purchase plus losses in other group enterprises which led to the failure of the Plain Station Group in August of 2005.
Now, Mr. Yerrall, you deal a little bit more in your rebuttal evidence with the previous owner's activities in relation to the airport. And can I ask you please to go to your rebuttal document and go in that to section 2, where you deal with the history of the site and your company's involvement in it. And can I ask you, first of all, to read out your comments in respect of Wiggins Group Plain Station at 2.2 through to 2.4, please.
at paragraph 2.4, small letter II, Mr. Alston refers to the owner of the airport going into administration in 2005. The Wiggins Group, which had acquired Manston in 1998 for £4.75 million, renamed itself Plain Station in 2004. As noted in paragraph 2.4 of my proof of evidence, Mr. Freudman, a director of RiverOak, previously worked as a managing director of Manston Airport Limited, a wholly owned subsidiary of Plain Station Group plc. Wiggins had been a fully quoted company on the AIM market in London since 1993. In 1994, the renamed Plain Station took a stake in the Irish-registered startup airline EUJet on the condition that EUJet based most of its operations and its 5 leased Fokker 100 aircraft at Manston. I'm sorry, in 2004. Within months, despite promising passenger numbers, Plain Station's CEO Martin May realized that, as with all startups, it could take up to 2 years for the airline to break even, and that a significant injection of capital would be needed to keep the airline going in the meantime. It is understood that Plain Station's leading shareholder, Prudential Assurance, was approached but declined to support a stock market share pricing to raise the necessary capital. An approach was then made to the company's bankers, Bank of Scotland, who declined to extend further credit as Plain Station was near its borrowing limit, and instead put the entire Plain Station Group into administration. Grant Thornton were appointed as administrators by the bank in July of 2005, and within 4 weeks they had sold Manston Airport for £17 million to Infratil, a publicly quoted New Zealand investment fund who already owned in whole or in part Prestwick Airport in Scotland, Lübeck Airport in Germany, and Wellington Airport in New Zealand. Passenger numbers for EUJet in its 10 months of trading were very strong. The problem was that Plain Station, as a group, simply did not have the capital necessary to support a startup airline to the point where it could begin to make money.
You then move on to deal with Infratel. Can I ask you please to read 2.5 down to 2.7?
During 2013, the advertised sale of Manston Airport in Kent and Prestwick Airport in Scotland came to the attention of Anne Gloag, who was the owner of Stagecoach, based in Scotland, and through her companies now owns Manston. As I understand PwC's brief, it was to sell both Manston and Prestwick together as a package. The problem was that Prestwick Airport was never going to be financially viable, and therefore the offered package was not attractive, and in my view would have put off purchasers. However, according to written evidence submitted by Anne Gloag's team to the Transport Select Committee in January of 2015, Prestwick Airport was the original purchase target, with Manston as the secondary target. However, a due diligence inquiry convinced Anne Gloag that Prestwick presented too many obstacles to profitability. At that point, in early October 2013, with no takers for Prestwick and faced with the risk of the airport closing and the loss of the associated jobs at a time when the Scottish referendum was looming the following year, the Scottish government intervened and decided to take Prestwick into public ownership. Stagecoach had purchased Prestwick once before in 1998 for £41 million, invested £10 million in it, and then sold it to Infratil in 2001 for £26,000. With Prestwick no longer on the table, Anne Gloag and her team focused their attention on Manston alone, and a few days later, Infratil offered to sell Manston to Anne Gloag for £1 as long as Gloag would commit to a definitive purchase agreement by the end of October 2013. The sale price also included any ongoing airport operational costs prior to the transaction closing, but involved a total cancellation of all of Manston's accrued debts. The Globe team quickly agreed and purchased the airport under two companies, Kent Airport Limited, the operating company, and Kent Facilities Limited, the owner of the airport real estate, in late November of 2013. The parent company, Manston Skyport Limited, was clearly so named to purposely imply that Manston would be retained as an operational airport. A joint press release was put out by the parties, including to the New Zealand Stock Exchange, with quotes from the CEO of Infratil and Anne Globe, which were designed to reassure readers that Manston's future was secure in the hands of Anne Globe. See Appendix A. In March of 2014, it was announced that the airport would be closed.
I'm just pausing there, Mr. Yerrall. Can I ask you just to turn to Appendix A of your rebuttal evidence, please? Because this is the statement that is issued at the time that Manston Skyport purchased the airport from Infratil. And if we look down that statement that was issued, we can see that Anne Globe said she was delighted to have purchased Manston Airport from Infratil, and as I believe there is a real potential for growth that has not been fully captured. In respect to the experts that are advising you, Mr. Yerrall, is there a real potential for growth that has not been fully captured?
Yes, I believe there is, as a cargo-based airport with other services, as has been outlined earlier.
Just look a bit further down that statement, that she then went on to say that having worked in the transport industry for over 30 years, I believe I'm very well placed to help maximise opportunities for both freight and passengers at Manston. Did she go on to maximise those opportunities, or what happened after that?
She operated the airport for approximately 3 months and announced that it would close. I'm not aware that any investment was made or planned in that time.
Thank you. So that leads me on to this question, please, Mr. Yerrall. In your view, in the light of all the information that you have in front of you and have researched, is it right to imply from the failure of Plain Station and Infratil, and indeed Manston Skyport, to operate a successful airport at Manston, that it is not possible to do so?
My assessment of the situation is that none of the prior owners put any real significant capital into the property, nor did they have a marketing team or a business plan that would allow for that non-invested capital, that were ever invested, to bear fruit. So our plan, I believe, does all of those things and will make Manston a very successful operating airport.
Thank you for that, Mr. Yerrall. That brings us back to section 3 of your summary proof of evidence, please, on page 3, where you set out the Manston Airport and your vision and your proposals for investment in it. And can I ask you please to read out 3.1 down to 3.7?
It's widely agreed that there is scarcity of airport capacity in Southeast England, as documented in Dr. Dixon's proof. Try and saying that 3 times fast. Most aviation observers have noted an acute current shortage of aviation cargo capacity in the Southeast, and that is evidenced by both the lack of desirable cargo landing slots as well as the increasing amount of cargo being trucked to and from the UK to Frankfurt, Schiphol, and de Gaulle, among others. These truck movements increase product costs, clog roadways, including the Channel Tunnel, and are less attractive and less efficient means of moving cargo. RiverOak's analysis of the history of Manston's operating history revealed two main consistent themes. Past owners focused on making passenger traffic their main priority, and throughout Manston's private ownership history, the site has been deprived of the kind of capital investment required to successfully compete in the industry. Manston is ideally located to serve the London area as a cargo hub. It's 65 miles southeast of London with excellent road connections to and from London. Manston's not in the London airspace, and so it will not contribute to the congestion in the sky over London, while easily being able to serve as a reliever airport should the London system temporarily fail. Manston has close proximity to both the Channel Tunnel and the Port of Dover. Manston's runway is over 2,700 meters long and over 60 meters wide, and so it can accommodate any plane that is currently in use and any new planes currently being built. With a size of over 700 acres, Manston has the area needed to build out the required ground infrastructure to support a state-of-the-art cargo hub. There are no other airports that enjoy the combination of landmass, runway length, proximity to London, Dover, and the Channel Tunnel. It's widely known that Boeing, Gulfstream, Embraer, Bombardier, and Amazon are looking to establish servicing centers in Europe. Manston's attractive combination would make it an immediate consideration for these companies. There's also an emerging market opportunity at Manston in the field of aircraft recycling.
Thank you. And in your main proof of evidence at Appendix 3, if we can just turn to that now, please, Mr. Yerrall, you produce a financial analysis. And I think I'm right in saying if we look at paragraph 3 of that financial analysis, you have used the forecasts produced by Dr. Dixon in order to carry out that analysis. Is that correct?
Sorry, which tab on
Appendix 3, tab 4. Tab 4, sorry, sir.
That is correct. Financial analysis was prepared from the traffic forecast created by Dr. Dixon.
Can I just ask you very briefly, please, Mr. Yerrall, just to explain to the inspector what has been undertaken in your financial analysis and the conclusions that you derive as a result of it, please.
We took a range of anticipated capital expense investment in the property. We ran that against the movements that Dr. Dixon's forecast created. What it creates is what I would call a long-term J-curve, where cash is negative in the first couple of years due to the investment, and then slowly but steadily starts trending upward vertically and ultimately becomes like you would expect a long-term infrastructure investment to become, that yields somewhere between 7 and 9% on a cash-on-cash basis over a long time period. So this has all the makings of what I would consider to be a traditional infrastructure investment that's sound.
Just to identify where the financial analysis contains the J-curve, if we can look please at page 10 of the analysis. And do we see that at figure 9? Is that?
The long-term J-curve is represented in both figure 9 but more accurately in Figure 10, where the you see the vertical negative line in year 0 representing the investment, and then a bumpy but gradual steady rise forward on total cash over time. So that in year 30, the projection shows that net cash, which would include the original investment, is somewhere in the vicinity of 320 million pounds, cumulative basis.
And in looking at the return on that, you were saying, well, that's between 7 to 9%. Do we see that set out in tables 11 and 12, the announcement?
Sorry, I didn't turn back off. Yes, that is what table 11 and 12 say, which is essentially using two different CapEx investment numbers, 287 million in the former and 215 million pounds of CapEx in the latter, that your base case trends between 7 and 9%, which is what you'd expect for an infrastructure investment, all cash.
And if we go to the last page of your financial assessment, you can see your conclusions, having carried out your financial assessment. And can I just ask you, please, to read out paragraph 33 of that conclusion?
Manston Airport, as a cargo airport with this scale of CapEx, generates an unleveraged annualized return between 7 and 9% over a 30-year period, making this a highly attractive infrastructure opportunity.
Thank you. And then if I can ask you, please, to go back to the summary evidence. And just quickly, like you could deal, if you'd be so kind, please, section 4, the early efforts carried out by RiverOak to develop the project. And can I ask you to read 4.1 to 4.3?
Over a period of nearly 3 years, RiverOak has persevered through 2 separate efforts to team up with Thanet District Council on a compulsory purchase order. These efforts were to collaborate, which were initially encouraged by the council, were ultimately doomed by financial demands by the council. For instance, its requirement to produce an irrevocable letter of credit for 20 million pounds as a precondition for commencing a CPO. RiverOak had extensive conversations with Oryx Aviation, General Electric Capital Aviation Services, Airbus, Ryanair, and others. While those entities had no interest in collaborating with RiverOak whilst the project was tied up in a local political wrangle, they are all open to investing or in some way participating in the project once site ownership is controlled by RiverOak. To expedite the reopening of the airport and underlining RiverOak's belief in the viability of the planned cargo hub, RiverOak made 4 offers to the owners of the airport. 3 of those offers, including one for the full asking price of $7 million, were made before the airport was closed. A 4th offer, written offer, in excess of $10 million, made at a significant premium to the value of a closed and stripped airport, was rejected by the owner in June of 2016.
Thank you. And if we just quickly turn to paragraphs 2.8 of your rebuttal evidence, please, on page 3. I think we don't need to read this out, Mr. Yerrall, but in paragraphs 2.8 to 2.12, you set out your offers and efforts to purchase the site from Mrs. Gloag. And you then set out at paragraphs 2.13 through to paragraph 2.18 your efforts to partner Thanet on a compulsory purchase order. Mr. Alston, in his evidence, points to the failure to enter into a partnership agreement with Thanet District Council as an indication that there's no realistic prospect of Manston Airport being used as an airport. Can you just very briefly explain to the inspector, please, what you were offering and your understanding of what you were offering to do as an indemnity partner in respect to the CPO, and whether it was appropriate or acceptable?
Well, we went to what was then known as Rag Lawrence Graham, and a specialist in the CPO planning law field, and offered Thanet District Council an indemnity agreement which ensured that no cost would ever fall on Thanet. We offered to pay for Thanet to use Denton's, who is a known CPO specialist firm of solicitors. However we went about it, we just never could get the traction to get the council to understand, or seemingly to understand, what we were offering.
Can I just have your help on this? Did the proposed indemnity agreement that you were putting before Thanet District Council require that they be put in funds by yourselves before any acquisition of land under confirmed CPO could take place?
It most certainly did.
Therefore, were the council completely financially protected by what RiverOak was offering to them in respect to the CPO?
As far as we could understand, and as far as our lawyers could advise us, we were offering them what would be considered a standard protective document that created no risk or exposure to the council.
And therefore, in your judgment and in respect of your understanding of the events that took place at that time, is it appropriate to place any weight on the failure by Thanet to enter into an indemnity partnership agreement with you in terms of showing that there's no realistic prospect of Manston being put back to airport use?
I would say that garners no weight. I'm not sure there is anything else we could have done, or I'm sure there's nothing else we could have done that would have given them any more protection than we gave them.
Thank you. Can we then come back, please, to your summary proof, Mr. Yerrall, and turn in that to your section 5 on page 4. And in terms of there being a realistic prospect of the airport being used as an airport, is RiverOak committed to pursuing a development consent order for that end?
RiverOak has spent well over £3 million pursuing both the CPO and now the DCO. We're coming up on our 3rd anniversary. We've assembled a team, all of whom have been hired and are performing services, including Amec Foster Wheeler, Azimuth Associates, Bertram Dyson Bell, CBRE, Michelle, North Point, Osprey to consult on airspace, RPS for master planning, and Viscount Aviation for modeling and business advice. We've met with PINS on numerous occasions, and we've obviously instructed our consultants to undertake considerable original research at considerable cost to verify what we believed all along, which was that Manston as a cargo hub made complete and utter sense both locally, regionally, and nationally. We've performed a non-statutory consultation between July and September of 2016. 90% of over 800 responses were positive, and we're now producing the documentation for a statutory consultation, which we anticipate to take place in the second quarter of this year. We've produced a scoping report, which we have now begun to work on since we were denied access to the site until right around the first of this year. And we've entered the site, taken our first tests, and are in process on both that and on desktop studies for noise. So we're completely underway on many fronts. We've had stakeholder engagement with the Environmental Agency, Natural England, Historic England, Kent County Council, Heritage Conservation Group, Southern Water, Thanet District Council, and the Kent County Council.
Thank you. Can I have your help with this? Is RiverOak seriously committed to pursuing a DCO for this site?
We're fully committed. There isn't any more commitment we could have made. We've been frustrated at every turn, and we've kept coming, finding a way because of the belief we have that this airport makes sense financially and for the country.
Thank you very much. Mr. Yerrall, if I can then just please ask you to turn to section 6 of your summary, if you can just read out 6.1 and 6.2.
RiverOak and its investors have spent 3 years and more than £3 million to date in pursuing its proposals to reopen Manston Airport as a cargo hub airport, which will significantly contribute to the local, regional, and national economy. RiverOak and its investors are experienced investors, and the money spent to date are evidence of their confidence in the scheme and the determination to pursue it. As investors, we would not pursue the scheme if we were not completely convinced of the merits and the business case for it. RiverOak is committed, prepared, and financed to pursue a development consent order and deliver the scheme. Although progress has been slowed by unsuccessful CPO negotiations with Thanet District Council and the delay in obtaining site access, RiverOak has undertaken substantial works in preparation of its application. RiverOak expects to submit its application for the development consent to PINS in the second half of 2017 and anticipates that the DCO will be granted by the end of 2018.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yerrall.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yerrall, for that. Sorry, King, I do apologize. No. Mr. King, do you have any questions to ask of Mr. Yerrall?
I did. Yerrall, have you got your main proof of evidence, please?
I do.
Thank you. Well, if you turn to the very beginning, where you tell us that you're a director of RiverOak Strategic Partners Limited, and in 2.1, on page 2, it will also be your main proof of evidence that RiverOak Strategic Partners Limited, the independent special purpose UK entity, will make the application to the DCO. Do you see that?
I do.
Right, just can you avail yourself of core document 16? You've got access to the core document. I'm not quite sure how this is going to be managed, but I want to ask you about core document 16. Core document 16.3, which is the scoping, it's what the RiverOak scoping Investment Corp LLC. Yeah?
I'm finding it as I get older.
It's on
Yeah.
the very first page. The absolutely first page, the title page, not even.
I see it.
Yeah. And then if you go to page 6, actually no, sorry, CD 16.4. So this is the next 4 documents. This is your informal pre-consultation document of July last year. All right.
Yes.
Thank you. And then go to page 6 of that. It is about RiverOak. You see, RiverOak Investment Corporation LLC is an American investment group based in Connecticut in the USA. You're all familiar with it, and so on and so forth. I don't need to read on. What is the relationship or connection, if any, between RiverOak Strategic Partners Limited, who are now we're going to be responsible for the DCO application, and RiverOak Investment Corporation LLC, which was responsible for the informal pre-consultation document and the scoping report, or at least in whose name that was submitted? What's the relationship, please?
In late 2016, RiverOak Strategic Partners Limited bought the rights to process the DCO from RiverOak Investment Corp. LLC.
I see. So there is no relationship. Is that right? I mean, it's not a subsidiary. RiverOak Strategic Partners LLC isn't providing any funding. There is no relationship or connection between them.
That's correct.
That is correct. No. And are you personally, Mr. Yerrall, still an officer of RiverOak Investment Corporation LLC?
I'm not.
No. You were, but you're not any longer.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. So RiverOak Strategic Partnership has taken over responsibility for promoting the DCO application from the US corporation.
Yes, bearing in mind that however the investment was going to be made, it would have been made as a special purpose LLC in the UK.
And I mean, is any of this information that I've just elicited from you on the PIN's website?
I don't know the answer to that.
No. I mean, do you know whether PINs have been told that it's now Strategic Partnership, not the LLC, the US LLC, that will be submitting the DCO application? Do you know whether PINs have been told that?
I do not.
Don't know. All right. The authorization under Section 53 of the Planning Act for entry to be gained to the site in order to undertake survey work. Yes.
Yes.
And there was a good disagreement about that, and PINs decided that there should that right should be granted. Yes.
Yes.
And obviously this is a subsidiary point entirely, but you'd accept, I'm sure, that the landowner is perfectly entitled not to agree to that. As landowner, there's no reason why they should cooperate with you in allowing access to their land, is there?
According to the Planning Act of 2008, I believe if we can demonstrate that we've got a project that is a potential NSIP, a nationally significant infrastructure project, there ends up being an obligation to cooperate.
But they were entitled, the point I'm putting to you is that the landowner is entitled not to agree that the criteria are met and to let PINs decide, aren't they?
I believe so.
Yeah. All right. But that authorization, I understand, am I right, for the purposes, as I say, of undertaking survey work for the preparation of environmental reports, was granted to the LLC, wasn't it, the US company?
I believe so, yes.
And that was actually, yes, okay. By which company have those rights been exercised, please? Or do you not know?
The rights to enter?
Yes.
Let me back up a step. The project, when it was owned by RiverOak Investment Corp., was always headed by Niall Lawler, Tony Freudman, and myself. So the company that entered the site was RiverOak Strategic Partners Limited, having bought the rights to the DCO at approximately almost simultaneously the same time as the PINs granted access.
All right, so exercised by strategic partnership having bought the rights is your answer.
That is correct.
All right. Thank you. Now, just going back to your proof of evidence, please, if you would. But this is your main proof, not your rebuttal proof. Again, in the first section, section 1 that is, and you tell us about your extensive experience as an investor. None of that's in any doubt. And the various notable opportunities that you personally participated in. But there's nothing, at least, that you told us about that today involve projects in the UK or Europe. Is that correct?
For myself, all I have to show is 3 years of trying desperately to do a deal to buy the airport at Manston in the UK.
So no, it has, other than your desperate attempt to get Manston off the ground. Yeah?
That's correct.
Nor have you been previously involved until this one, at least. At least you don't tell us that you have in any aviation-related projects. Is that correct?
That's also correct.
All right. Thank you. Now, you appreciate, I'm not sure you do, Mr. Yerrall, but I'll ask a question to see what the answer is. Do you appreciate that the acceptability and feasibility of RiverOak's emerging proposals for a cargo operation at Manston will be tested not through this appeal process, but through the DCO process once you've made the application?
I do appreciate that. What I understand the distinction to be is that the appellant has relied on evidence stating that for any number of reasons the airport is not viable, and that my testimony has needed to come in as to it relates to viability to counter the appellant's your evidence.
I see. Well, you see, you're referring to your financial analysis, aren't you?
All of it. The traffic forecast, the capacity issues, all of it.
Well, the traffic forecast and capacity issues are largely dealt with by Mr. Kane and Dr. Dix.
That's correct.
Setting that aside. Well, let me ask you a compendious question then. Your evidence in the form, particularly of your financial analysis, and the material that's been submitted to the inquiry by Mr. Kane and Dr. Dixon had not previously been put into the public domain, had it? That is, until it was submitted as part of your evidence for this inquiry.
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay. And would I be right in thinking that that material, amongst no doubt a lot of other material, will form part of the material that's submitted in support of the DCO application?
Yes, I think it's accurate to say it'll be some part of what's submitted.
That's very clear. I mean, there may be some changes. I'm not suggesting it has to be identical, but that material in substance will find its way into the DCO application, I expect. Is that right?
I expect that the information submitted at the DCO will be far more in-depth.
Fair enough. And of course, you'd accept, I'm sure, wouldn't you, that much of the information that's submitted as part of the DCO application may be put into issue by my clients, the landowners, by the council, by other interested parties, once the application has been made. You'd accept that that's possible, at least, isn't it?
Based on my experience, I would say I'd expect it's likely.
Likely. And if it is put into issue, which I think we agree is likely, not necessarily all of it, but some of it anyway, the relevant authority that has to consider and determine the DCO application will we'll have to consider the evidence and determine the issues, and whether you're right or the objectors are right or somewhere halfway in between. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. We've had an illustration of this, haven't we, today, Mr. Yerrall, from the appearances by Save Manston Airport, No Night Flights, and Mr. Crow. That's
Yeah.
an illustration of the sort of things that are going to be argued about at a later stage, isn't it?
In all likelihood.
It's not your evidence, is it, Mr. Yerrall, that because this material has been put into this inquiry, that the appellants and the district council must be taken to accept all of it as correct? Is it? You're not saying that.
What I'm saying is it's a true representation of what happened. How other people respond to it is not up to me.
Yes, I mean, I'm not suggesting you don't believe in the material for a single second. Of course, you'd be like all intending applicants do. I think that answers the question sufficiently. Thank you. I mean, the other thing is this, isn't it, Mr. Yerrall? You've already said that even the material or the subjects or topics that are covered by your financial analysis and by Mr. Kane and Dr. Dixon's evidence are likely to be submitted in I wrote down here far more depth as part of the DCO application. Yeah?
Yes, further work will be done.
Further work will be done. But that's not all, is it? If I can, without exaggerating, I hope put this to you, there's a huge amount of other relevant material, such as the environmental impact assessment, the environmental statement that will have to be put in as part of the DCO application, that's still being prepared and isn't yet in the public domain.
That's correct.
Yes. And the environmental statement will have to cover matters such as those that Mr. Crow mentioned, noise impacts.
That's correct.
Yes, all right. And that will have to be very carefully assessed, no doubt.
I would expect.
We expect that to be the case. All right. Can we now move to a rebuttal?